Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're delving into a really fascinating story from ancient times. It's packed with surprising facts and some pretty deep insights, about human nature and maybe where real happiness comes from. We've got just one main source this time, but it's a rich one. It's an excerpt from the Maṭṭhakuṇḍalivatthu. That's the story of Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī.
Right.
And our mission really is to pull out the key wisdom from this ancient text, to understand what it really means to be sort of well-informed about the power of our own minds.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is how this story, which seems quite simple on the surface, it comes from Swathi, and it just unpacks these profound truths about intention, about compassion, and, well, the sometimes unexpected ways transformation can happen.
It really does challenge your assumptions, doesn't it?
Absolutely, about what we think is truly important.
Okay, so let's dig into this. The story kicks off in Sotāpatti, like you said, with this character named Adinapubaka. And his name, it literally means never given before. Subtle?
Yeah, you can probably guess why he got stuck with that name.
Yeah.
He was a Brahmin, and true to the name, he just never gave anything to anyone, ever.
And that name detail, it's not just color, is it? It immediately sets up the core conflict, I think. This extreme, stinginess versus what comes later, this revelation of generosity.
But not generosity with money.
No, exactly. Generosity of spirit, maybe, or intention. It's a fascinating contrast.
So even this guy, he had a son he loved, and the son's name, ironically, was Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, the polished earring.
Right.
And here's where the father's extreme thriftiness really shines, or maybe doesn't shine. When the son needed ornaments, earrings, a Brahmin didn't want to pay a goldsmith, so he hammered out the gold himself to make these polished earrings.
Wow. Just to save the goldsmith's fee.
Seems like it. I mean, it really highlights his whole approach to life, even with his own kid. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What happens when that focus on saving, on holding on to wealth, just completely overshadows, basic needs?
Yeah.
Or even just affection?
Yeah, and we see the consequences play out pretty dramatic.
I certainly do.
So fast forward, the son, Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, is 16. And he gets really sick with something called Paitroga. A pale disease sounds pretty serious.
Debilitating.
His mother, understandably, begs the Brahmin, get him a doctor.
Makes sense.
But the father, nope. He says if he calls a doctor, he'll have to pay food and wages.
Oh, come on.
Seriously. So instead, he goes to the doctors himself, asks them about remedies like, what about tree bark? Fetches it himself, brings it home, and tries to treat his dying son on his own.
Just to save money. It's actually quite chilling when you think about it. Prioritizing money over your child's life to that degree.
And the text says the son just got worse and worse under this treatment. Became incurable, actually.
Yeah. Tragically predictable, I suppose.
Yeah. And then comes this moment that's just unbelievable. The son is clearly dying, right on the edge. And the father, worried that visitors might come and see all the wealth he has stored inside the house.
What does he do?
He drags his dying son outside, lays him on the porch.
Thank goodness, just laid him outside.
Yeah. So people wouldn't see his stuff.
That's a low point.
It really is. But right then, as Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī is lying there, dying on the porch, something incredible happens. The Buddha,
okay.
looking out at the world, with his profound insight, he sees the boy.
And this is absolutely pivotal, isn't it? The Buddha, using his knowledge net, they call it, his deep wisdom, he sees more than just the suffering.
He sees potential.
Exactly. Huge potential. He actually foresees that if the boy can just cultivate a serene mind towards him, towards the Buddha.
Just a thought.
Just that mental state, yeah. He'll be reborn in the Tavatisa heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, a major celestial realm.
Wow.
And not just reborn there, but in this incredible golden mansion, like 30 yojanas wide, that's huge, maybe hundreds of miles, with 1,000 celestial nymphs attending him.
Just from having a serene thought.
That's what the Buddha foresaw. It speaks volumes about potential, even in the worst situations.
So, okay, the Buddha goes to the house. Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī is facing inwards, can't see him at first.
Right.
So the Buddha emits a ray of light, like a signal.
A gentle nudge.
Yeah. The boy turns, sees the Buddha, and even though he's incredibly weak, this thought arises in his mind, something like, my father, he's so foolish. Because of him, I never got to serve the Buddha or give donations or hear the Dhamma, the teachings.
A moment of clarity.
My hands are useless now, he thinks, but my mind, I can still make my mind serene. And right there, dying, he does it. He focuses his mind serenely on the Buddha.
And that simple act, that pure intention.
That was enough. The text says right after the Buddha left, the boy passed away with that serene mind and instantly, poof, reborn in heaven.
It's incredible. It really emphasizes that profound change doesn't always need some grand action. Sometimes it's just about the purity of your inner state.
So, back on Earth, the father, Adina Pubaka, true to form, he cremates his son.
Right.
And then every day he goes to the cremation ground and just cries, "Where is my only son, my only son?"
The grease is real, even for him.
But up in heaven, the son, now this divine being, remembers his father, remembers the stinginess. And he decides, okay, I need to do something here. So he appears near the cremation ground, looking exactly like his old self, Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, but, adorned, divine. And he's also weeping.
Oh, this is brilliant. The dramatic irony. He looks just like the son the father is grieving for.
Exactly.
But his purpose is totally different. He's not there to grieve with him. He's there to wake him up.
Right. So the father sees this beautiful, weeping young man and asks, "Hey, why are you crying?" And the divine being says, "Oh, I have this amazing golden chariot, but I can't find wheels for it. A wheel pair."
Okay, setting a trap.
Totally. The Brahmana, eager to help this distraught youth, says, "Oh, wheels. I can get you wheels. Gold, jewels, iron, silver, whatever you need."
Playing right into it.
But the divine being replies, "No. None of those will do. I need the sun and the moon as my wheels."
The impossible request.
Exactly. And the Brahmin immediately says, "You're foolish. Crying for the sun and the moon, that's impossible."
And here comes the reversal.
Yep. The divine being turns it right back on him. Oh, really? Who's more foolish? The one crying for something visible, like the sun and moon, even if it's unattainable, or the one crying day after day for someone who's dead and gone, completely unseen?
Boom. That must have hit home. Challenging his whole perception of what's real, what's worth grieving for.
Absolutely. The text says it was like an aha moment for the Brahmin. He just got it, stopped grieving right then. And he actually praised the divine being, saying, "You've pulled the arrow of sorrow right out of my heart."
Wow, a complete turnaround.
So then naturally he asks, "Who are you, wise young man?"
The big reveal.
And the divine being says, "I am your son, Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī. I was reborn in heaven because of a good deed I did."
And the father must have been just floored.
Yeah.
Because from his perspective.
Exactly. He's perplexed. He says, "But son, you never gave donations. You never observed holy days. What good deed?" His whole framework for merit was based on external actions.
Right. He couldn't connect the dots.
But the divine son explains it so simply. "It was because of my serene mind towards the Buddha just before I died."
Just the mind state.
Just the mind state.
Yeah.
And this fills the Brahmin with this incredible joy, a realization. He declares right there, "I'm taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the community. Today."
That's a huge shift. From total miser to taking refuge.
And the son doesn't just leave it there. He gives him practical advice.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
He tells him, okay, now that you've taken refuge, uphold it and observe the 5 precepts.
The basic ethical guidelines.
Right. Don't kill, don't steal, avoid sexual misconduct, don't lie, avoid intoxicants. Basic stuff, but fundamental.
Good guidance. Then what?
Then, poof, the divine son vanishes.
Mission accomplished. For now.
So the Brahmin goes home, totally changed, buzzing with excitement. He decides to invite the Buddha and all the monks for a meal the next day.
A public declaration, almost?
Kind of. And the text even notes he's so worked up, he just blurts out the invitation to the Buddha, doesn't even do the formal greetings.
Yeah. Still figuring things out.
Yeah. So the day of the meal arrives, and a crowd gathers, actually 2 kinds of crowds.
Huh.
There were the people with, let's say, wrong views, who were hoping the Brahmin would somehow stump the Buddha, maybe humiliate him with skeptical questions.
Critics.
And then there are the others, those with right views, who were eager to just witness the Buddha's wisdom and see how this whole thing played out with the famous miser.
Right. It highlights the buzz around the Buddha, the public interest in these encounters.
Totally. So after the meal, the Brahmin, even with his newfound faith, still has this little seed of doubt, maybe, about how simple it all seemed for his son.
Understandable, perhaps? It goes against conventional thinking.
So he asks the Buddha directly in front of everyone, "Venerable sir, is it really possible? Can people really get reborn in heaven just by having a serene mind towards you, without all the donations and rituals and stuff?"
The $1 million question.
And the Buddha just gently says, Brahmin, didn't your own son, Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, already tell you exactly that?
Good point.
And then the Buddha recounts the entire story for the whole assembly, confirms everything the Brahmin experienced.
Okay, so that should settle it, right?
You'd think. But the crowd, still skeptical. Many of them, anyway.
That's interesting in itself, isn't it? Even with the first-hand account, the idea of merit from just a thought. It was hard for people to swallow.
It really was. It shows how ingrained the idea of external actions being the only source of merit was.
So what did the Buddha do to convince them?
Well, he performed what the text calls a miracle. He basically willed the divine Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī to appear, right there, with his whole celestial golden mansion.
Whoa. He brought heaven down to earth, basically.
Pretty much. And down comes Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, descending from his mansion, all adorned, paying respects to the Buddha in front of everyone.
Okay, that must have gotten their attention.
You bet. So the Buddha asks him, right there, "Divine being, how did you attain all this splendor, this prosperity?"
And the answer?
Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī confirms it. "Venerable sir, I got all this simply by having a serene mind towards you."
Straight from the source, in glorious technicolor.
Exactly. And the crowd was just astonished, blown away. They started murmuring, wow, the power of the Buddha, look at the reward just for having a pure thought.
The penny finally dropped for them. Seeing is believing, I guess.
It seems so. And with the crowd now totally convinced, the Buddha delivered the core teaching, the main takeaway from this whole story.
The Dhammapada verse.
That's the one, a really famous one. He explained the deep connection between your mind and what happens next, he said.
Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought.
If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him.
It's so powerful. This is where the story connects to this universal principle, right? That the mind isn't just part of the equation.
It's the driver.
Exactly. It's the architect of our whole experience. Inner state dictates outer reality.
So let's unpack that a bit. What do these terms mean? Mano, or mind.
Right. Here it's referring specifically to a wholesome state of mind. Joyful, clear, connected to understanding.
And it's Pabhyangama, the forerunner. Why?
Because it arises first.
Yeah.
It's the primary cause that makes feelings, perceptions, all the other mental stuff pop up, like the leader of a group setting the direction.
Okay. And Manosia, the chief.
Means it's dominant, it's in charge. Like the CEO, the mind calls the shots.
Got it. And Manomaya, mind rot.
Means all these other mental states are made from the mind, crafted by it. Like, if you have gold, you can make rings, necklaces.
Yeah.
They're all gold rot. These states are mind rot.
So the mind really shapes everything.
Fundamentally.
And when the verse says speaking or acting with a pure mind, what does pure mean here?
It means a mind that's free from the nasty stuff, basically. Greed, hatred, delusion. The big three unwholesome roots.
Okay. And a mind like that naturally leads to good actions.
Exactly. Wholesome actions. The verse mentions speaking and acting, which covers like the four kinds of good speech. True, kind, beneficial, timely words, and the three kinds of good bodily actions. Not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct.
Right.
But it also implies wholesome mental actions, even when you're not saying or doing anything physically. Like non-covetousness, goodwill, right understanding. That rounds out the 10 wholesome actions path.
A complete path for ethical living, basically, rooted in the mind.
Precisely.
That last line is beautiful. Happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Why the shadow analogy?
Yeah, it's a great analogy. The commentary explains it really well. Think about your shadow. It's stuck to you, right?
Right. Can't shake it.
Exactly. When you walk, it walks. You stand, it stands. You sit, it sits. You can't tell it, hey, shadow, you stay here, I'm going over there. It's inseparable.
Okay.
So in the same way, the happiness that comes from actions done with a pure mind, it's just like that shadow. It follows you. It's an inseparable result. You can't have the cause, the pure-minded action, without the effect, the happiness. It's guaranteed.
It shows this reliable cause and effect, but in the mental and karmic realm.
Perfectly put. It's not random. It's a natural law.
So there we have it. The whole story of Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī. From this extreme, almost pathological stinginess and suffering to this incredible rebirth in heaven, and ultimately this deep insight for both the son and the father, and all triggered by
a single moment of cultivating a serene mind, pure intention.
It's pretty profound.
It really is. And the core takeaway, I think, is just how fundamental our inner world is.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our intentions. They're not just background noise. They are the actual blueprint for our experience.
It's not just what you do, but the mind behind it.
That seems to be the key lesson here. That inner transformation is where genuine well-being starts.
And the impact described in the text was huge, right after the Buddha gave that verse and explanation.
Massive. It says 84,000 beings who heard it attained Dhamma realization, a direct insight into reality.
Including the main characters.
Yes, both Maṭṭhakuṇḍalī, the divine being, and the Brahmin, the father, became stream enterers.
Which is a big deal on the path to enlightenment.
Huge deal. It means they've had that first direct glimpse of the ultimate nature of reality. They've entered the stream, irreversibly heading towards enlightenment. No falling back to lower states.
Wow. All from that initial spark. This whole deep dive really shows that these massive transformations, they can start with something incredibly simple, something purely internal.
A serene mind.
Yeah.
So, maybe the question for you listening is something like this. We live in a world that's often so focused on the external, right? On actions, achievements, what we have. How might things change if you put more focus on cultivating that pure mind? What might the trajectory of your own happiness look like then? Could it maybe start following you around, like that unwavering shadow?
Something to really ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep that mind curious. And maybe, just maybe, a little more serene.